That's funny.
It
That's
worked out. Well, man, I love your background. I love what you're doing. So thank you so much for taking a minute out today. I
yeah.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
So let's begin our journey before we get into your good work by asking you this. 5 years ago, this pandemic, we were getting into it. Everything was raging, so many unknowns. Ultimately, now in 2025, when you look back, how did you make it through and how has it changed the way that you approach things now?
That's a really good question. I was in when the pandemic hit, I was coaching in the NBA with the Bulls, and I had just left Utah. And obviously that night, March 11th, I'll never forget it. We had just landed in Orlando, and we had just got to our hotel room, and I turned the TV on and saw that Oklahoma City and Utah were canceling the game because Rudy Gobert was basically Agent Zero. He was the first player to test positive,
Yeah.
and they flew us home that night. We got right back on the plane. I believe that night or next morning, and it shut down. So just like everybody else, we had this shutdown, and they just actually sent us home. So I came back to Nashville for several months, but I'm a big reader, and a I read a lot. I walk 6 to 8 miles a day. I listen to books and I listen to podcasts, and I don't listen to uh, sports podcasts. I listen to leadership. I'm really big into behavioral economics, emotional intelligence, and things like that. So it really allowed me to take a deep dive into something I thought could help me in my career and also help other coaches as when I eventually transitioned out of the day-to-day grind of coaching and got into giving back and consulting and things like that. And ironically too, I started playing the piano during the from I went from I played guitar for a long time, but I was like, well, I'm going to start. This is the best time. I've got more time than ever.
Yeah. Well, I noticed the keys back there, and it's interesting because I have
Yeah,
a jazz podcast and
yeah,
and a radio show, and musicians, whenever they want to branch out, they always start on the keys because it's like they can get their notes and they can figure it out. That's where they noodle. That's where they migrate to.
yeah. It's funny. I like I said, I got a whole rack of guitars back here. You can
Yeah.
see them. But I was like, I was going to start at 55. Pandemic hit when I was 53, so I'm giving away my age. And I thought, might as well start now. I'm never going to have this much time. And I got a bunch of musician buddies, and it's part of the reason we moved to Nashville. And you brought up Austin because we moved here from Houston, and it kind
Okay.
of came down to those two places. I was ready to move from Houston. My wife was ready to move, and we don't have children, so we had autonomy in that. And you know, but so many of my buddies told me, said, once you start playing the piano, you're going to become more creative on your guitar, and they were 100% right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I've always heard. So you know what's so weird about living through the pandemic and being a sports fan is I was getting my son into hockey. He's on the autism spectrum. So
Oh,
the winter months can be one of those things where you need to fill the void. So he loves basketball, but we really wanted to get in ice hockey. And I remember at one point about 2 weeks before the pandemic began, there was a player, I don't know if you remember, I think it was San Jose. He had an aneurysm on the bench and they stopped the game. And I remember I came out and I told my wife, I said, they just stopped this game. Little did I know that the entirety of every sports schedule was going to be irrevocably rescinded for however many years and months. But that moment right there just shows where we were mentally with how things in sports, because sports is like a well-oiled machine.
yeah.
It's like prohibition in Kansas City. They're going to drink and you're going for it. You're not
Yeah.
stopping.
Agreed. Yeah, it is interesting that you bring that up, and I have my nephew is also on the spectrum as well, and he's super bright, so I have an affinity for those kids and people, actually, not just kids because they've grown to be adults. But
Yeah.
um yeah, I think for us, it was strange because you never get that kind of downtime. But I think you make a great point where sports is such a connector. And even when sports shut down, people didn't have somewhere to turn, and and unfortunately, they just, I'm going to make a confession here. I haven't watched the news in 25 years. I'm very intentional about that.
Yeah,
But unfortunately, there was no sports for a while, and all that was on was the news. It was a very unfortunate, in my mind, a combustible bad combination, and it
absolutely.
caused a lot of people to get in their own heads about a lot of things and nowhere to let it out.
Yeah, it's totally true. So let me ask you this. Right now in 2025, if I put you in front of a bunch of 12-year-olds, fifth graders, career day, the kid in the back of the room is like, hey, what do you do for a living? How do you answer him?
Yeah. Well, what I do for a living now is I do what I've always done. I'm a coach, I'm a teacher. I'm just doing it in a different format. I was fortunate. I spent, going on 40 years of coaching now, 20 plus of it in the NBA, in the best league in the world, and I'm still doing the same thing. I'm teaching. I'm consulting. I wrote the book that I don't know if you had a chance to click on the website, and it's really a leadership book on, it's called Fail. Instruction manual, and it's not about overcoming failure, which a lot of people think. It's, if you want to fail, just exhibit these behaviors. It's a 20-minute read. It's kind of a Saturday Night Live skit. So yeah, I'm doing what I've always done. I'm doing it in a through a different lens and a different platform, trying to teach people how to be the best version of themselves.
Absolutely. So what did you want to be when you were 12? What was your dream?
Well, I wanted to be a professional baseball player.
Okay.
That's a so easy one, which
Yeah.
is, yeah, that's what I wanted to do. And, I was fortunate. I played in college and did some things, and had some injuries that set me back, wouldn't allow me to progress to the pros as a player. And it's why I went into coaching. I got an economics degree to go to law school, and I got that. I say this every time when you say it to a group of 12-year-olds. That's what whenever I talk to kids or players, young adults, I tell them I stayed in sports because I want to wake up and put my hand in the huddle every day.
That's it. So,
Simple.
yeah, for sure. What were these elements? Take me back to your childhood. Where were you born and raised? What were these elements of sports, leadership, coaching? How were these seeds woven into you?
Yeah, great question. Well, I grew up in Belding, Michigan. Just it's on the west side of the state, just slightly northeast of Grand Rapids, 20 miles northeast of Grand Rapids, in a small town. I come from a family of police officers, 11 in total now. My dad was one, my brother's one, my sister-in-law. I can go right down the list. And not one day, I have all the appreciation in the world, but I never one day want to be a cop. I
Yeah,
want to be like my dad in a million ways. That's not one of them, because when you ask about where did I get leadership from, it was from my parents.
yeah.
Like, I don't say that lightly. Like, I mean it. Like, I had, like, leadership was walked around my house every day. And we were encouraged to my name of my website's called Space for Curiosity. People often ask me, like, what am I most proud of in my career? And I certainly have moments, but what I'm most proud of is if you're going to write something on my tombstone, which hopefully is a ways down the road, that the tagline is perpetually curious. We were raised that way. We were taught to be that way and try stuff, and you're not going to like everything. You're not going to be good at everything, and that's okay. So, and then I just had really good mentor. I was just fortunate. Like, at every turn, I had good coaches and good teachers, and high school, college, and then when I became a coach, I had great mentors in Larry Ray, who I first coached basketball with, and on through the Rick Albro, and on to my first in the NBA. My first boss was Rudy Tomjanovich, who is now like my he's got about a million hats he wears for me. He's like my pseudo dad, my uncle, my big brother, my mentor, all the above.
So is he, would you consider him your favorite coach, mentor in your life?
I don't know if I'd use the word favorite. I think he's the most impactful.
Yeah, that's I guess what I because I think about my life and I was an athlete. I was 4'11" in high school, so I didn't have a lot of options, so I ran. I was in cross country. I couldn't do anything else. But my coach, I remember, was Coach Nixon, and he was just wonderful. And I look back years later and I can pick apart why he was so good at it. So what were some foundational lessons that were laid into you that really blossomed and gave you the cornerstone for being such an effective coach? I mean, you coached at the highest level. There had to be things that were ingrained in you that reverberated and made you so effective at what you did.
Yeah, the first thing is that um above anything else, you have to be honest and you have to live some hard truths. And although every day is not going to be easy, I mentioned about my book failure. I think learning how to accept setbacks and work your way through it were some very early lessons. And I didn't know it at the time, but looking back at the people who I mentored and the way I turned out, and why I believe in some of the things I believed in is it, I always had coaches that did two things. They leaned into me as a person and they were encouraging. They weren't, and not, and when I use the word encouraging, people think that encouraging and being positive are synonymous or interchangeable. They're not. Like you got to be inner. Believe me, my dad was very quick to point out my flaws, but he didn't dwell on them. My coaches were quick to point out my flaws, but I have to give credit to my wife for this because she's the brains of the household. She calls we don't use the word weaknesses. I don't use it anymore. We call them areas of opportunity. So looking back at those were some of the foundational things, and then just be very detail oriented. I learned early on that the process that winning is a byproduct of the process. You got to have it. You can't skip steps. My dad was huge on that, and other coaches I had along the way. So yeah, I was beyond fortunate.
You know, I remember the first time I had a massive interview, it was with Sonny Rollins. And I remember I got off of that phone call and I was vibrating. I was like, oh my God. I called my show engineer, my good friend. And the best professional advice I ever got from him was this: never forget that even though you're interviewing, it's a two-way avenue. You're giving and they're giving. And I think about you being around all of these massive levels of talent, and especially when you talk about the Bulls, it goes without saying. I mean, that they've had a legacy of championships that is up there with the Lakers and the Celtics. So what did you ultimately get from these athletes? I mean, you're a coach, you're supposed to dispense all of this, but it's a two-way avenue. What kind of energy, what kind of goodwill did they feed into you that made you the best at what you did?
I think that it comes down to the lessons I learned earlier. I get this question a lot from college coaches that I interact with. They'll ask me, "What's it like to coach pros?" Especially when I didn't play in the pros. And I tell them it's real simple. There's three fundamental things that those guys are looking for. They don't care if you're black, white, purple, short, tall, fat, skinny, got all great hair, got no hair. They don't care about any of that. What they care about is can you lean into them as a person so that over time they can trust you to look out for their best interest, right? Can you so the trust thing that takes time. And I mentioned earlier, you got to put chips in your basket because you're going to have or should have and not run away from some tough conversations to help those guys both as individuals, as humans, and as players. The second thing that they care about is, are you competent? They don't care if you played the NBA, played Major League Baseball, they don't care about those things. I think instantly it might give you some credibility, But if you're not able to do those other things, that washes away. That's like painting with watercolor. That washes away real fast. And then the third, and maybe most importantly, is they need to know that you're in it for them, not for yourself. And believe me, Joe, they sniff that out in a hurry.
Yeah.
And I think my background, just how I was raised in my own household with a father who was very loving, but very direct and didn't run from difficult things, um, uh, had provided enormous impact for me. And it's easy, and if you can do that for them, you're hey, like there's going to be turbulence. Every player's not going to like you. Even the guys that do, it's no different than any other relationship. There's going to be some days that are better than others, but man, I mean, for the most part, I feel like in that uh, regard, I had a pretty good run.
So, there's a part of coaching, I'm sure that it's a mincing of right and left brain, but music tends to be a right brain thing. How much of being a musician helped you in coaching? And same way, vice versa. How much did both of them kind of feed off each other and help you as a human?
That's a really good question. The music part I haven't thought about. I mentioned I have a degree in economics.
Yeah.
So what people do, and so people think, oh, math, so you're going to be left-brained, right? Economics is actually a uh sociology. It falls in that category. So it's a different way to be creative and think about human behavior. And I talk about trade-offs and unintended consequences all the time. And then because I'm curious by nature, um, I I just I'll stumble onto things that will make me think in a different way to approach things. And then also the analytic side of me is I was in the NBA and was on the first team that truly became with the Rockets, that became very analytically driven. Like decisions are made based on analytics. But the economist in me made me want to look at things from different angles and different ways to do it. It's how I kind of came up with in part, how I came up with my book is one is everybody goes and tells people how to succeed. It's like listen to Charlie Brown's teacher, that maybe I should tell them how to fail and grab their attention.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have to be a fan of Freakonomics and Malcolm Gladwell, right?
Oh, yes.
When you said
Yeah.
that, I
I
was like,
listen to the Freakonomics radio all the time, and
yeah.
I've read the books. I've got notes on the like. Yes, I reference Freakonomics and Stephen Levitt and Huebner all the time.
So as a musician, where are you at on the 10,000 hours?
That's a good question. Not as way further along on those guitars than I am on that
That's what I
piano.
figured. That's
Yeah,
what I figured. Yeah,
yeah,
I've tried to do that with podcasting. Like, where am I at? And I'm like, wow, I'm way away from. That's a long time. That's a lot of hours.
I wouldn't. I would. I can am beyond comfortable in playing my guitar, with people in front, but I'm not at that point on my piano yet.
Yeah,
I love playing it. I play it near almost every day, but yeah, I've come a long ways, but I've still got a good journey ahead of me.
totally. What was the first like really seminal live concert you saw that blew you away?
Uh, that just completely blew me away, or
Yeah.
just my first concert.
I would say probably just blew you away.
Uh, Man, I would have to say, I'm going to date myself again. It was not my first concert, but when I saw REO Speedwagon live
Yeah.
in the early '80s, and riding the storm out, and before they got into all the mushy songs,
Yeah.
or when they started mellowing out, but like those, man, I saw them at the Ionia Free Fair. And I just remember I was a young guitar player at the time, and Kevin Cronin was great, but just watching Gary Richrath play the guitar and "Riding the Storm Out's been one of my favorite songs since I
Yeah.
was a kid. So Yeah, man, it was cool. And then I would say after concert after concert after concert after concert into my 40s, when I saw Billy Joel live, it was like nothing I'd ever seen.
Yeah. Yeah. He I saw him probably about 15, 20 years ago. And yeah, he just blows the roof off of any place he goes. He's
Oh,
amazing.
it's insane.
Yeah.
It's insane. His level of performance, and I mean, then so it wasn't, but I was like, and I had seen hundreds of concerts at that point,
Yeah.
and was a Billy Joel fan, but I never saw him. And then he finally came through Houston, and man, oh man, I was like, this dude, he's just on another planet.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
So of everything that you've accomplished in your life and done and evolved into, what are you the proudest of?
Uh, um, I think I mentioned the perpetual curiosity, but if you're just asking me like at an event or things like that, I think I'm most proud of, and I'm flawed. I'm not perfect, but I try to do it the right way. I feel like I'm a coach's coach. Like I understand coaching. I understand the difficulties of it. I understand the things that come along with it. The stress. Um, the emotional impact, the psychological impact at times. But if you had to pick one thing, and I'm going to try to say this without my voice cracking because it happens to me every time. I was fortunate enough to be on the USA staff. I did the game preps Coach K's first year in 2006.
Wow.
And I didn't um, I didn't go into the military, but I have all the respect for the world because besides coming from a family of cops, many of those people were additionally in the military. My father was, for instance, my brother was not. But I remember going when we were getting ready to go, leave the US and go on our to Asia. The World Championships were in Japan that year in Tokyo, but we went to other countries first, Korea, and other place, Hong Kong. And I remember thinking to myself, man, I get to serve my country. And we went to some bases and practice over there. And one of them was 7 miles from North Korea.
Yeah.
And I learned that I'm not serving my country at all. I'm representing it. And there's a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah. So, of all of the games that you've been next to, one of the things about being a sports fan is that energy. As much as I love the Royals winning in '85, when that ball went underneath Billy Buckner's legs in Game 6, my dad was from Long Island, so I was a Mets fan. That's the euphoria that you want when you're a fan. What was the most intense, wondrous energy you've ever been next to in any capacity in your life?
Yeah, I would put it, I would say that USA, its stint. I mean, unfortunately, we lost to Greece in the semifinals, and we end up beating Argentina and winning the bronze, which was it was just devastating. It's still, in fact, I have the bronze medal hanging up as a reminder of how hard it is.
Yeah.
It's hard, and even with the best players in the world, it is hard. So I'd say that, but it's funny. I give speeches and I tell people I've never one time won the last game of the year ever in my life
Yeah.
because I've never, as a coach, I never won a championship. I didn't win a college championship. I didn't win an NBA championship. We had good runs and we went deep and we had really good teams, but winning championships is difficult. And um, yeah, man, it's over like that.
Yeah.
And you look up and you got to walk in that locker room and it's never the same group of guys 2 years in a row. I
Sure.
mean, you look at you live in Kansas City, you reference it, Royals, but you even look at the Chiefs, like they've been fortunate to keep some significant guys, but it's never the same group of 53 guys
Yeah.
every year.
Yeah. It is.
So and I mean, when it's over, it is over
Yeah,
quickly.
absolutely. Yeah, it is. So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, all of your fans, everybody that gets your book, everybody that's known you throughout your life, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think I'm a guy who tries it. Like I said, I'm flawed. We all have our own blind spots. Part of the reason that I don't dive into behavioral economics, emotional intelligence, I feel like that was sometimes research is me search, right? Like, how can I be better? So, if I reflect on myself, like I said, I think I'm curious. I think I'm a kind person. And that's something I try to take pride in and be conscientious of. And I learned this early on from my father is that we should always have which is the main reason he became a police officer. Is it's funny that uh their tagline is to protect and to serve. And I think my dad, as much as anything, he was slanted far to the serve and giving back in particular. And I've always uh, been very conscientious of my uh, uh, obligation to do the same.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to pick up the new book, Fail, if they want to reach out, any of the good work, any of the good business, where do they go?
They go to space for FOR curiosity.com. You can read about myself. There's a quick blurb about my personal journey, a quick blurb about my professional journey. You can find the book. You can read a quick blurb on the book. I do a weekly blog on there that's updated every Thursday. So this one will be coming out this afternoon, this week's, which is uh there's it's called Nuggets and Reflections. And it's only snippets. And one of my favorite Socrates quotes, and I think this is important. In fact, it's in the very last page of my book, is I cannot teach anybody anything. I can only make them think. And that's the purpose of the blog is there's not a whole bunch of answers. It's here's a 5 to 7 minute uh read that I'm hoping will make you curious enough to then dig in for yourself.
Absolutely. So I got one last thing on Buddy Biancalana. I always wished, okay, instead of it being the big half moon, they would have just done a circle around his number.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Just be like, you know what, dude? You have the longest name. You're going to be the sunshine. Put little rays off of his name and stuff.
Unbelievable. And what just a cool, like it's so funny. I love I get Joe, I get so excited when I actually get to talk to somebody and mention that and they don't look at me like I'm Beetlejuice, like you know
No.
what I'm talking about.
You know what, dude? You've inspired me to find him. I think I'm going to try to find him and interview him because I love that era so much. I actually met him at the mall. I remember the day I met him at an old mall and got his autograph. It would be such a fun interview to recollect that time period and kind of see where he's at. So you've inspired me.
Well, give him my best, please.
Yes, I
And
totally will.
he's a great inspiration, even though I was a diehard Tigers fan.
Yeah,
And there were some battles in those years, Tigers won it in 84.
yeah,
But he's actually a great inspiration. And baseball's a little bit different because you don't have person on person contact. So
yeah,
sometimes size doesn't matter as much. But I just think he's a great example. Not that I know him or a lot about his story, but I just even remember it when I was a kid or young adult, uh, thinking, geez, that guy he's diminutive compared to a lot of these other
yeah,
guys, but
yeah.
he's getting it done.
He's
And he's got the greatest name ever.
Yeah, he's the Muggsy Bogues of the league. It's like whenever Muggsy was next to Manute Bol and they had like six basketballs in between them. It's like, yeah, anybody can do anything, man.
Yeah.
Determination is quite a thing. So,
Well, this has been a heck of an interview. I forgot about your jazz one. I need to check that. I need
yeah,
to check those out. But it was fun, and I appreciate you having me on. And
absolutely.
hopefully, we can stay in touch and have some future conversations.
Sounds great. Yeah, hopefully I can find Buddy and I'll send you that link, but I'll send you a link to my show too so you can stream it. But yeah,
Okay.
this has been an absolute pleasure. I love the mincing of sports and music. It's like perfect.
Yeah,
So
awesome. Well, you
it's
got a
good.
great background there too. I don't know who
Thank you.
drew that, but if
That
that was you, heck of a job.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm a visual artist, so that's one of my originals.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I
Good for you.
I don't do the music, but that's the part of my brain I do. I stayed away from instruments because I want it to be visceral. I want it to wash over me. I've just gotten to that age in my life where it's like, I don't want to think about the specifics and particulars. I just want it to be like Kinda Blue for the first time. I want it to wash over me like an alien dropped something into my tape deck. And I'm like, what the hell is that? And just feel it. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Well, man, you need to write stories. There's a heck of a description right there, man.
Right there. The liner notes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, cool.
Yeah.
Dean, thank you, sir. This has been an honor and a pleasure, and we'll stay in touch, man.
Thank you. I appreciate you. We certainly will. Have a blessed day.
You too. Take care.
Thank you.
Hello, friends. Joe Dimino here. I just wanted to let you know that after 30 years or so, I have finally released my first book of poetry through the mighty Spartan Press here in Kansas City, Missouri. As the creator and host of both Neon Jazz Radio and the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino podcast, along with being a visual artist, I'm ready to embark on a new adventure and want you to be a part of it. You can get a copy online via Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and actually on the streets in Kansas City at the great Prospero's bookstore off 39th Street. You can also visit joedimino.com for links to the book, to more poetry, and everything in my world, including paintings. Thanks for all of the love and support over the years, and please dig the words.